All right, we're recording. Maybe. Where's my mouse? Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Jay Wilson. I'm a freelance Domo consultant, making tutorial videos for you guys, my Domo Dojo community. If you're not involved in the community site, this is a great place to kind of exchange ideas, ask questions, get questions answered, and keep track of some of the tutorial videos that I build for Domo people. If you haven't, or sorry, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're a longtime viewer of my Domo tutorial challenge, thanks for that. Send a comment, let me know that you like what you're seeing, or tell me what to change. Today, we are going to use the Java CLI to change the column names of a Domo Fusion. Java CLI change dataset. Why? Well, for starters, let's take a look at what it looks like inside of Domo, the old-fashioned way, right? So if I'm in the UI, I can build a fusion where I bring together two different data sets. I'm going to pull together a table set that I've got called the GL entry, and I'm going to join it to a table called this date, a date dimension table. Let me tell you, like down the road where we're going. I need to build a trial balance. One of my clients wants to build a trial balance, and they happen to be using nav for their financial data. And it's super easy to get that data inside of Domo using Workbench, piece of cake. But I wanted to have a date dimension that defines things like, for this posting date, what was the end of this fiscal year? What was the start of this fiscal year? And I maintain that kind of data in a date dimension. If this sounds interesting to you, I do have a tutorial video in my channel somewhere where I built a date dimension using MySQL. So go ahead and find that. But okay, so I'm going to start by joining my data together. I'm going to join on posting date is equal to date. I'm going to do an inner join, and I'm going to run my preview. And this is something that Fusion does really well. Joining data sets like with the date dimension, that's the perfect use for a Fusion. If you're not using Fusions, get on it, dude, because this is a very powerful tool. Now, as part of building out my Fusion, I can choose to exclude columns. Like date value and DB date are the same thing as the posting date. So I'm going to exclude those columns. You'll notice I can also rename columns the first time you're creating a fusion. And this is the whole reason for this video here. I want to rename this column posting date year, because it is the year of posting financial year. And that's fine. What's not fine, and what I believe to be kind of an oversight on Domo's part, is if I don't update all of my column names when I'm creating the fusion, I won't get a chance to rename the columns later. And that is just, a shortcoming of the UI. So I'll call this nav GL entry with date. Okay, so I'm saving my fusion for the first time. And if I look in my data flow, hey, this is sorry, not. If I look in my Fusion, hey, this is great. I've got all of the data, posting date year. Oh, I forgot to rename these two columns. These should be called posting year start and posting year end. And I want to drop these columns. I can go in and, sorry for moving this. Where can I put this guy? I can edit my data Fusion. And if I load my preview again, yes, I can exclude columns. But notice I can't rename columns. And again, this is the shortcoming of the UI that we're going to address by changing the schema using the Java CLI. And you might say, but Jay, wouldn't it just be easier to make a new data fusion? You're probably right. Yes, in the grand scheme of life, it would be easier. But what if I had 50 or 60 cards pointed at this data set in production already? It's not easy yet to move beast modes from one data set to another. And who knows, I might have like apps and such pointed at this data set. So I don't want to change the data set. I just want to rename the columns. So let's see. To access the Java CLI, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into more and go to admin. And then first thing I need to do is I need to give myself an access token. I need to give myself the ability to access Domo via the APIs. And I need to generate an access token. Delete me. Wow. Delete me. I'm going to create the access token for myself. And because this video is going on the internet, obviously I'm only going to generate a token that's good for a day. These access tokens are the same thing as your username and password. So don't just put it in a YouTube video on the internet where anybody can see, because you'll give people the same permissions and rights to your data that they have if they logged into Domo using your username and password. So be really careful with your access tokens. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Tools, and then we're going to find the Domo CLI, which is a .jar file, Jar. It's a .jar file, which you'll download and put someplace safe where you can access in Visual Studio Code. Now, you don't have to use Visual Studio Code. This is just my preference because I'm familiar with it. But any place that will give you a command line will work just fine. All right, so there's my access. First thing I need to do is I need to launch the Java CLI. The Java CLI is in a folder called Java CLI. So let me get into that folder. Great. To launch the Java file, I'm going to type java-jar and then the file name, domo-util.jar. Okay. If you're successful, it will tell you that it's launching the command line tool. And it will also hopefully tell you that you've got the most recent version of the Java CLI. If you don't have the most recent version, just replace the file with a fresh file downloaded from the tools download section that I just showed you. I'm going to save this. When I'm doing consulting projects for customers, I always, especially if I'm doing work in the CLI, I'll build them a little cheat sheet like this where I'll say, these are the commands that I ran to do the work, so that if you need to recreate it, you can. You might think about putting this in GitHub or someplace safe, but of course, remember, that's a username and password, so be careful about that. Okay, so the first thing I did is I launched the Java CLI. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the help command. The help command will literally list out every single command that I can run in the Java CLI. And it will also give me some documentation about how to use a command. So if I, for example, wrote help connect. Connect is one of the functions that I can run. It says, oh, hey, the connect command will connect to a Domo server. In order to connect, you need to pass the domain and the access. So how do I connect to my instance of Domo? Type connect dash server North Shore partner.domo.com, I believe. And then my access token will dash T, and then, oops, no, not that guy. My access token is here. Oh, helps if you spell connect correctly. Connect. Okay, success. It tells me that I've authenticated as j.wolf. And again, I'm building out my documentation for future customers so that they know how I did this. All right, cool. What are we doing again? We are trying to alter the schema or change the column names of that data set. Which data set? This data. So I'll want the URL or the dataset ID, and that's this string here. Okay, so that's my dataset ID. What command is going to let me alter a data set? I believe the create data view. Let's take a look at what parameters create data view accepts. Help create data. Okay, these are the parameters that I accept. It says it accepts a schema file, so the schema definition, and I can create a new data view by giving it a name, or if I pass the -i parameter, it will alter the schema of an existing data. Cool. What should the schema look like? Well, here's an example here. Sample data view with a where clause and a simple. I don't want to have to define from scratch. So I'm going to ask, is there another command? Is there another command that will? Oh, sorry. Is there a command that will help me get the schema of an existing data set? Is there a get schema? Ew. So with get schema, if I pass the -i parameter, it will give me something interesting. So let me do this. So get schema -i, and then it gives me this long gobbledygook. But if I read through here, I'm like, oh, there's a name called entry number. There's a data type called date time. This looks like the definition of a data set. If I pass the -f parameter, it will save the file. So if I do get schema -f temp schema.json. Okay, so this time instead of giving me the full definition, it just said, hey, I created a file for you. Let's take a look at that. All right. Oh, that's ugly. Can I pretty print it somehow? Well, because it's a .json file, Visual Studio Code has recognized, oh, your language is JSON. So if I right-click and format document, it will pretty print it for me. That's convenient. Res, convenient. All right, let's take a look. A schema file is divided into sections. The first section is the columns key value pair, which is an array of all of the columns in my data set and the data type. This bit of data here is useful if you're creating a data set instead of a data view, because I can define the upsert key and stuff like that. But I don't need that right now. So if I wanted to, I could erase this and it would still work. Okay, so the first section is the columns that says what are the names of my columns, what are their data type. But because this is a fusion, it also has a views node that says, hey, this fusion comes from this data set. And hey, that's interesting. It has clauses that look similar to SQL. So this schema blob is just a way that the Domo API will ultimately translate this into a SQL query that runs against the Domo Adrenaline database. Kind of cool if you think about it. In any event, in the views node, I have another subnode called mapping. And in the mapping node, it says, hey, I've got a column called posting date only that consists of this expression. I'm getting the data called posting date only from that table. This node is somewhat similar to the select clause insofar as I could rename, hey, this is the column that I want, but I want it identified as this alias. And so that's where I'm going to go to update my column name. I'm looking for, yes, here. I wanted this called posting year end, and my year start. Posting year start. So the column name is still intact. I'm just changing the alias. I'm almost done, but let's scroll through and look at the rest of this query. So after the mapping nodes, you have a node called column fuses. The column fuses defines how the data set is fused together. In this case, how do I define the join? Oh, it's an inner join between table A and table B. And what are the join criteria? Well, we're going to join where DB date is equal to the posting date from table A and table B. Yeah, fusions, man. Data views, dataset schemas, powerful, powerful stuff. Why are we doing all this? Because remember the Domo UI did not allow us to rename columns. So I have to go and edit the schema using the JavaCLI. We're almost done. I'm going to rename in the columns section. This says what columns do I actually want to show and in what order do I want to show them. And so I'm going to look for the node, or I'm going to look for the element year start here. And hey, you've been renamed to posting year start, and you've been renamed to posting year end. And I think that's it. So let's give it a shot. We'll save this. Okay. So I've updated the schema file. Now I need to push it back up into Domo. So I'm going to create, let's look, create data view, look at the documentation. The documentation says, pass the -i parameter if you're updating an existing data view, and then pass the schema file for the updated schema. So create data view, pass the, what is the data set that I want to update? This guy. Oh. Nope. Oh, it exited out of the job. What did I just do? Sorry. Get back into the JavaCLI. I need to connect again. And then I want to create data view. I'll type it here. That's the data set ID. And then I want to pass, I think it was -s, the schema file temp schema.json. If it works. Helps if you spell data view correctly. Sorry, guys. For the money. So it says it's executing, it's indexing, and updated. Cool. If I go back into Domo, where are you? Notice here it says, hey, your data view was updated a few seconds ago. Let's refresh the page and look at the data tab. If I'm successful, the column's called posting start up. They've been updated. Look at that. Sweet. Again, what did we do? We created a fusion. When you create the fusion the first time, you have the ability to include and exclude columns, but also rename columns. Once you save that fusion, the UI does not allow you to rename columns. Hence why we go into the Java CLI to rename the column. How did we set up the Java CLI? We started by creating an access token. Remember, the access token is functionally the same thing as the username and password, so don't put that on the internet. We then went to tools and downloads to download the Domo CLI. And you want to make sure you have the most recent version of the Domo CLI because that will always have the most functionality, bugs, fixes, blah. To launch the Java CLI, we typed in java-jar domo util.jar. That opens it up. Then we had to connect to our instance of Domo. I could connect to literally any instance of Domo if I have the right access to it. So again, this is username and password stuff. Just leave this on the internet. Then, I didn't type down the command. I typed the command get schema -I to put in the dataset ID. We used the get schema command, and then we saved it to a file. We used the get schema command to create this file. We ran through the file and made our updates. Then I used the create data view command to push the new schema definition back. And that, friends, I use the Java CLI. My name's Jay Wilson. I am a freelance Domo consultant. So if you've got questions about it, hit me out on the dojo, subscribe to my channel, and comment in the channel, or email me at jae@onyxreporting.com. In case you're wondering where we're going next, the use case was my client needs me to build a trial balance in Domo, because in finance, you can't do anything unless you can build a trial balance. So that's always going to be the first step. Now, the tutorial, I'm going to publish a tutorial video pretty shortly, and you'll want to watch it because most people try to build a trial balance in Domo. They don't get the final, like, really nice user experience that they're hoping for, and they have to do all this crazy, like, data pre-aggregation and stuff. I'm going to show you how to do it using real fake data. So Nav's Cronus database. I'll show you how to build a trial balance using relatively real data that gives you the user experience. So catch you soon.